Hi, Dave Blockus here, LosAltosHomes.com. Wanted to talk to you today about seller representation in a multiple offer situation. What we've seen a lot in the last 4 or 5 months is buyers approaching listing agents directly, whether it's at the open house or whatnot, and asking them to represent them in the purchase of that particular property. Now, while this is not illegal, there are a bunch of concerns, especially if you are a home seller, of having your listing agent represent the buyer in the purchase of your own home. Now, what you should do, or what I recommend, is have a sit down with your agent prior to signing on the dotted line to have him or her describe basically how they intend to act if that situation should arise. Now, the first thing they'll want to talk about is agency, which is basically a legal relationship between you, the seller, and that real estate agent. And it actually is the brokerage house and the salesperson, not just the individual agent. What are their duties to you acting as an agent on your behalf? Now, part of those revolves around fiduciary responsibility to you as the home seller. Okay, and have your agent describe what they do and what they won't do in regards to that. I have 5 questions you may want to ask that listing agent prior to signing. The first one is, will you represent my interests solely, or will you also represent the buyer of the home as well? And are there different scenarios where you would do it, different scenarios where you wouldn't do it? And do I have the option of saying yes or no under those particular situations? The second question I would ask your agent is, what are the benefits to me as a seller to consent to dual agency, having you represent both buyer and seller in that situation? The third question would be, what are the pitfalls of you representing both buyer and seller in this transaction to me? Fourth question would be, does your role change if you represent both buyer and seller? Do you add services? Do you take away services that affect me in the sale of my particular property? And then lastly, which best serves me as a seller? Having you represent me solely, or having you represent both buyer and seller, and why? I think that's the telltale sign, is the answer to that question on how your agent will respond and represent you. Basically, when an individual represents both ends of the transaction, they are acting as a dual agent, which limits their fiduciary responsibilities to you as a seller. They become more of a transaction coordinator, I would say, and less of an advocate for you. Hopefully this helps out when you get to that situation because of our low inventory. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact me. Again, it's David Blockus at LosAltosHomes.com.